Hi, I'm Paul Edgington from CEO Advantage Advisory Service. I've been a professional CEO for more than 25 years in the commercial and not-for-profit sectors. In the CEO Advantage podcast, I'll be talking to a group of CEOs, who are also my friends, about what it takes to become a CEO and how to be a great CEO. We'll talk to the CEOs about things like, does a CEO always know they're going to be a leader, or do they discover it? Do successful founders make great CEOs? When an executive has worked alongside a CEO for a long time, does it make it easier to take over the role? What was it like to be a first-time CEO? All these questions and more are answered by some fantastic CEOs on the CEO Advantage podcast. Go to ceoadvantage.com.au and let us know what questions you'd like to ask or who else you'd like to hear from. Give us the who is Millie and what do you do?
I am a co-founder and director of Milko, which is a brand and marketing agency. But I'm more than that. I'm also a mum. But then you kind of stop there. I feel like, and I'm really curious with the leaders that we're going to be interviewing, is that going to be a recurring theme? Is business, family.
You started Milko as a side hustle.
Yeah, I started Milko as a side hustle back in 2020 when I realised that businesses really needed to have an online presence, especially the small businesses who were really drowning. So that's where I was and I started doing it for free. I did all my logos, website, everything for free because I just really wanted to help them.
What is it about you that has made you not want to be normal? What I call normal is just not conform.
I had this whole philosophy, to say yes to anything that seemed remotely exciting. It was a bit of that life motto that I lived by. I was always yeah, let's do it.
Start with yes.
Why not? Yeah, start with yes.
Adam has got an impressive executive career spanning 25 years across retail, finance, tourism, technology. You've got extensive experience in managing large multinational businesses, and you've guided Sweat through an acquisition and then an unacquisition. We'll explore a little bit about what that is. You've worked closely with co-founder and personal trainer powerhouse Kayla to grow the world's largest female fitness community beyond 50 million followers.
Yep.
You've been a professional executive for a really long time. When did you know that's the pathway you were going to take?
Yeah. The emphasis on a really long time, so I'm assuming you're referring to my age. Thanks for making that.
Not as long as me.
At a young age, I was probably never really content to sit back and follow. Just wasn't in my nature. So on that basis, I felt more comfortable with leading. I've always lent really heavily on my ability to manage people and work with people really well. I'm not a manager or a leader that's ever lent heavily on title or hierarchy. In fact, if anything, I think that gets in the road. And it's been proven to be sort of successful across, as you say, a really long time.
Today's guest is Liz O'Connell, who's the CEO of Kudos. Liz brings 2 decades of experience in the human services sector, working from the front line to executive roles as a director and strategic advisor for a number of social enterprises.
What would you say if there's someone at Kudos, for example? What would you say? What would you do? What advice would you give them?
Many founders have this natural ability to say, I'm here to solve a problem and I'm willing to back myself to be able to solve that problem. And that skill is entrepreneurial, taught in sort of business and those environments. And we don't often allow that in the front lines of our workforce in traditional entities. And I'd say that is exactly what I would love to encourage all of my employees within Kudos to think of themselves as at least entrepreneurs, if not entrepreneurs, and be okay with sort of putting their hand up and saying, I can see a problem, I'm the right one to solve it, this is how I'm going to do it, and just backing themselves to be able to do that.
Awesome.
That's what I'd like to create.
This week we have Brent Riley, former AFL footballer. Brent Riley grew up in a small country town north of Melbourne, lived and breathed sport, and football was his chosen sport, becoming one of only 4% of players who passed 200 games. Adversity hit Brent when he suffered a career-ending injury where he fractured his skull and could no longer play contact sport.
Essentially just tripped over and just smashed into a teammate's knee. And all I remember is that warm-up incident with Sloaney, and this was a couple of drills after. Apparently he walked off the ground fine, just had blood come out of my ear. Player development manager rang up my wife, rang up Jamie and said, Brent's hurt himself, might be a concussion, so you might have to come to West Lakes and pick him up. And then has a seizure. And that was when I had to get rushed into emergency surgery, and 2 hours later, and depressed fracture in my skull and 3 plates in my head, and woke up in ICU with 70 staples in my head, and can't read. How do I write again? How do I talk again? That's when I had the Bell palsy come in. So I had one side of my face, couldn't smile. So I was like, one-sided smile. And you're sort of sitting there going, shit, am I ever going to be normal again? It being out of form, getting dropped from the side. Like
What you thought was adversity now has gone to a whole new level.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But all the tools you learn from that definitely helped me get through what happened to me. And that was the outlook I had. I was pretty optimistic around. At times I wasn't, but there was times where I was like, no, I'm all right. I'll get through this. I'm going to fight my way through this. I've done it before, and that was the most important part, having those people around at that time, and that certainly got me through. And I'm here today to tell the story, which I'm very lucky to.
I think I bought it for 200 grand. I was offered 500 grand for it 6 months later. I thought, great. Anyway, we ended up selling it for well in excess of 50 million about 8 years later, which was just validation again of the idea. Yeah, buy it, do that. It's not a tough business model.
Our guest today is the awesome Andrew Nunn. It's a good friend of mine as well. I'm really happy to have you here, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Andrew, I first met when he was the chief entrepreneur in South Australia. Andrew is a serial entrepreneur, very successful business guy, and for our audience, this is going to be fantastic. Lots to learn.
I'd say to young people is, get your staff and get your team around you, really good team, and people that are aligned in the vision, and hold on to them as best you can, and look after them. Because they're just hard. Really good people are really hard to find. And they're the backbone of the business. No matter how much you're the front guy, the machine happens.
Today, we have a well-known CEO, Tammy Barton. Tammy is the founder and director of My Budget, Australia's leading personal budget service, and is one of Australia's most influential businesswomen. Committed to promoting financial responsibility in the community, Tammy remains active in the business community, and it is a great pleasure to have you here today. Is there a moment in time when you can remember being aware of that your drive was stronger than most people? Or
Yeah, I don't think there was probably one, and it's probably upon reflection in these more recent years where I've looked back and gone, well, I think that's the reason why I felt like things were easy, because things did feel hard at home. And so I didn't realise, I didn't even know. Yeah, I didn't know. And when you're in the moment, and it's like anything, when you're in a difficult time, you're going through a difficult time in your life, you just feel like, oh, why is this happening to me? Like I just felt like other families were able to just go out and do normal things. We couldn't. Having my brother have Angelman syndrome, and how upsetting for my mum and dad. And it just makes life more difficult for my sisters. But then again, like as I grew up, I realised what a blessing that actually was. And I'm so grateful for Josh, because I feel grateful in my life for all the little things that I have, and of course for all the big things, but it's like it's the ability to be able to get over things, because in the scheme of things, that's not a problem.
I credit anyone who wants to establish a business, because you've got to be able to take an enormous risk, but at the same time you're prepared to put the fate of others, being your employees, in your hands as well, and really back yourself in. And so I take my hat off to everyone that sets up their own enterprise. I think it's brilliant.
This episode of CEO Advantage podcast is with Todd Roberts, who's the CEO of Credit Union SA. Todd joined Credit Union SA as the CEO in June 2020, having spent 25 years working in finance and professional services across Australia and the UK, including 11 years as a senior executive at the Commonwealth Bank. He's passionate about leading a highly effective, performance-driven professional teams. We're going to unpack all three of those concepts today, who are dedicated to achieving outstanding results for both internal and external stakeholders. Going from being an executive to a chief executive, is it hard?
It's the biggest step up I've ever had in my career. There's no question about that. I am a huge believer that if you are waiting for me to solve all problems or answer all questions, we're in deep, deep trouble. And in fact, you need to surround yourself with people that are far more capable than you are, but empower them to actually do their job.
Well, people will lose their jobs because of AI.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to Christopher Foster McBride from Digital Human Assistance. Christopher's passion is founding ethically driven AI companies. With over a decade of experience in Big Four, experience in the UK government as a policy advisor, and as an entrepreneur, he's got a wealth of experience. Today, he's the CEO of Digital Human Assistance, which aims to enhance human-AI interactions with the creation of AI and intelligent automation-powered solutions with capabilities to support people to undertake routine tasks.
If you can translate that to enhanced productivity and quality, which manifests in giving people more time back to do value-adding tasks, that's really powerful. That's actually a really good way to communicate it to your workforce. A lot of people are doing jobs where they do probably 30 or 40% of their tasks are boring, mundane, repetitive. And if employers were really focused thinking about how can we streamline these processes, how can we optimize them and move these across to a digital entity or a system, but let our workforce then focus on the stuff that they like to do, that we probably employed them to do, that they'll get more job satisfaction through. I think that is a much more sensible place to start.
You know what the secret to being happy is?
Go on.
Stop being unhappy.
There you go.
It's incredibly flippant, but when you think about it, it's true.
Yeah.
Just stop being unhappy.
Yeah.
It's a decision.
Darren Fleming is an expert in concentration, the author of 7 books. His latest, Mindset Mastery, has just been translated into Japanese and on sale in Japan. Darren says that if we want to be more productive in any area of life, the key is to focus on fixing the distractions inside our head and not what's around us in our environment.
But for you to evolve to the next version of yourself, you have to lean into that discomfort, and deactivate those energetic sensations you experience in your body so you can become the next version of you. You do things you like or you avoid things you don't like. It's that simple. So that person, whether they be senior leadership or front desk or, new manager who just stepped up from the floor, they are drawn back to their behaviours because they find that action desirable, as opposed to their new role that they find undesirable. It's that simple.
The first question I ask everybody on the CEO Advantage podcast is, what was their first job?
I was babysitting and then turned that into an opportunity into a business called Kids on Canvas. And so I would turn the portrait photographs into like cool Andy Warhol style prints. And that became my first business.
The first paid job was picking oranges in the fruit blog. At a citrus orchard, you work every weekend. You pick oranges and you're up there in 30 or 40 degrees and then that's your day.
My very, very first job was actually at a local Barnacle Bills, and I worked there only for a couple of weeks before realising I didn't quite get into the vibe of that place.
I'd always go work with Dad. So, Dad would never pay. He obviously paid for a lot of things in my life. And that's, if you want to look at a non-paid job, I was a plumber first. But yeah, getting drafted and then coming over to Adelaide, that was my first full-time and paid job.
So it's a toss-up between either working in Dad's pharmacy, where I was paid $2 for the Saturday morning. The other one was delivering papers.
If we're going to exclude me setting up little stalls out the front of my house where I was running little businesses selling my old toys and books and lemonade.
How old were you doing that?
Primary school.
A mate and I decided to set up a car washing business. So we got a bucket, a sponge and some pretty probably second-rate car washing detergent and hopped around to all these places.
I had 3 paper rounds sort of from the age of probably the 8 or 9. So, sort of doing those on a daily basis and at the weekends. And that was in the day before, obviously, the rise of the web and online sort of media and paper and stuff. So those big, heavy bags.
My first job was picking up golf balls at a golf driving range while they were still hitting the balls out.
In my 25 years as a CEO, one of the hardest things to find was a consulting and advisory firm where they'd actually been CEOs. I created CEO Advantage to be the advisory firm I was looking for. Go to ceoadvantage.com.au and find out how we can help you and your team be the best in the business.